I'm Dr. K, the management professor, and this episode is about attitudes and attitude changes as they drive consumer behavior. First, please subscribe to my channel by hitting the subscribe button down below and also hit the notifications button so you'll see each time I post a new video. Now let's get started. This episode is about attitudes and attitude change. According to Babin+Harris, attitudes are the relatively enduring overall evaluations of objects, products, services, issues, or people. They play a critical role in consumer behavior, and attitudes are among the most researched topic in the entire field of consumer research and in all social sciences. In fact, attitudes and value are very closely related. Think about it. You have a positive attitude towards products that you believe deliver value, and a negative attitude towards products or services that don't meet your expectations. In fact, there's a theory about attitudes. The functional theory of attitudes is a theory that suggests that attitudes perform four basic functions. 1. Utilitarian, 2. Knowledge, 3. Value expressive, and 4. Ego defensive functions. Now let's dive into each of the four. First, the utilitarian function of attitudes. This is the function of attitudes in which consumers use attitudes as a way to maximize rewards and minimize punishment. For example, you purchase a product or service because you expect that it delivers a specific value or benefit. The consumer is rewarded through a desired product benefit. Second is the knowledge function of attitudes. Here, attitudes allow consumers to simplify decision-making processes. To do so, consumers avoid situations with undesirable results and move towards situations with more desirable results. Additionally, attitude components become stored in the associated network in the consumer's long-term memory and linked together to form rules that guide behavior. So let me give you an example. If you do not want to have any credit card debt, you may shred every offer you get in the mail. You act based on the desired outcome. Third is the value expressive function of attitudes. With this function, attitudes allow consumers to express their core values, self-concept, and beliefs to others. It provides a positive expression of the type of person consumers perceive themselves to be and the values they hold. For example, if you support animal rights, you likely make a donation, wear a t-shirt, or make a post on social media about it. Lastly is the ego defensive function of attitudes. Here, attitudes work as a defense mechanism for consumers. It enables consumers to 1. Protect themselves from information that may be threatening, and 2. Develop positive attitudes towards products that enhance their self-image. Consumers who employ defensive mechanisms may be against their own interests. For example, smokers may discount the health risks of smoking because they like to smoke. Contrarily, some consumers make purchases to fit into groups rather than stand out from them. Now let's talk about the hierarchy of effects. This is the attitude approach that suggests that affect, behavior, and cognitions form in a sequential order. According to this approach, affect, behavior, and cognitions, or beliefs, ABC, form by following one of the four hierarchies: high involvement, or standard learning, 2. Low involvement, 3. Experiential, and 4. Behavioral influence. Now let's talk about each hierarchy. High involvement hierarchy is the first of the four. This one is the high involvement or standard learning. It occurs when consumers face a high involvement decision or address a significant problem. High involvement decisions are important to a consumer and often contain significant risk. In this hierarchy, beliefs about products are formed first, feelings or evaluations about the product are formed next, then the consumer decides to act in some way toward the product, to purchase it, forget about it, or do some more research. The second is the low involvement hierarchy, in which many consumer purchases or problems are not very risky or even significant. Instead, they're routine and boring. When low involvement purchases are made, consumers often have some basic beliefs about the product without necessarily having strong feelings towards them. A lot of times it's just brand loyalty. Here, an example is running to the store to buy the same toothpaste that you've been buying for the last 10 or 15 years. Next is the experiential hierarchy. In this hierarchy, purchases are based on feelings, and consumers often purchase products or try to experience simply because they feel good or feel right. Here, impulse purchases can be explained and are often motivated by feelings. Consumers buy a product spontaneously and with little concern for consequences. The fourth hierarchy is the behavioral influence hierarchy. This is when a restaurant chooses to play soft background music to relax its customers so they enjoy the evening. In this hierarchy, behavior is influenced by the environmental cues. The social judgment theory proposes that consumers compare incoming information to their existing attitudes. Whether their attitude changes depends on how congruent or in line with the information with their initial attitude. When an incoming message falls within the latitude of acceptance, assimilation occurs. This means the message is viewed as being congruent or in line with the initial attitudinal position. When the original attitude is held with strong conviction, either positive or negative, the latitude of acceptance is smaller and the latitude of rejection is larger. Before we end this episode, we'll talk about message and source effects. Message effect considers how the appeal of a message affects persuasiveness. Source effects are the characteristics of a source that influence the persuasiveness of a message. Let's dive into the former and talk about messaging. Okay, first let's talk about sex appeal. The popular saying in marketing is, sex sells. Consumers often find sexually appealing ads to be persuasive, even when they consider them to be exploitive or offensive. But reactions to the strategy depend on various factors, such as gender, level of nudity, and romantic themes. When it comes to sexually appealing ads, moderate levels of nudity are often used, just as highly explicit content tends to direct attention away from the product. Highly sexual ads tend to outperform non-sexual ads when they have highly arousing content. One study found that women react negatively to the use of female nudity in advertising, but that men respond favorably towards the practice. Conversely, a later study revealed men react negatively towards the use of male nudity in ads, and that women responded favorably. Additionally, humor appeals. Humorous ads can attract attention, create a positive mood, and enhance both attitude toward the brand and purchase intentions. However, humor appeals can also minimize the credibility of the message source. The overall effectiveness of a humorous ad depends, in part, on the characteristics of both the individual consumer and the advertisement. Recent research reveals that male consumers evaluate satirical humor more positively than do female consumers, who tend to prefer sentimental humor. Research also indicates that humor is more effective when a consumer's need for cognition is low rather than high. Furthermore, the initial attitude that a consumer has regarding the product plays an important role, as humorous ads appear to be more effective when the consumer's attitudes are initially positive rather than negative. Two other types of messaging are fear and violence. With fear appeals, advertisers may attempt to evoke some level of fear in their target audiences as a means of changing attitudes and behaviors. These ads often rely on a relationship between threat and fear as an emotional response. The product being advertised is often promoted as a solution to remove a threat. In short, fear appeals appear to be effective when they 1. Introduce the severity of a threat, 2. Present the probability of occurrence, 3. Explain the effectiveness of a coping strategy, and 4. Show how easily it is to implement a desired response. Many popular commercials have a combination of violence and humor, and a recent study found that the most popular Super Bowl ads include both humor and violence. Although research in this area is relatively new, early evidence suggests that men find comedic violence to be more humorous than do women. When it comes to violence appeals, women are less receptive to violence in advertisements, regardless of the level of severity of the violence. Younger consumers are generally more receptive to violence in advertising. You should also note that many violent ads use elements of humor to lessen the degree in which the ad is disturbing. Now let's talk about source effects. Source credibility is one type of source effect. Credible sources tend to be more persuasive than less credible sources. This effect tends to be highest when consumers lack the ability or motivation to expend any effort attending to the details of an ad, which is essentially low involvement. When it comes to credibility, expertise refers to the amount of knowledge that a spokesperson is perceived to have. Moreover, trustworthiness refers to a perception of the extent to which a spokesperson is presenting a message that they truly believe. Source credibility also applies to organizations. A second type of source effects is source attractiveness. Attractive models are often thought to possess desirable qualities and personalities, and they tend to be more persuasive than unattractive spokespeople. They are more effective when promoting products that have an intimate appeal. Interestingly, unattractive models are more effective when promoting products that have no intimate appeal. In summary, the attractiveness of models has an effect when the consumer's elaboration likelihood is high. A third type of source effects is source likability. Likable sources tend to be persuasive. Keep in mind, individuals differ in terms of who they like and dislike. The advertising industry relies heavily on a Q-score rating provided by Marketing Evaluations Incorporated as an indication of the overall appeal of celebrities. Ultimately, source likability affects persuasion more for consumers with a low need for cognition than with those for a high degree of this trait. The last type of source effects is source meaningfulness. Celebrities have images and cultural meanings that resonate with consumers, which is why they are used to sell products and services. The dominant characteristic of a source should match the characteristics of the product. Where there is a disconnect, you might question the advertisement. Hopefully you have a better understanding of attitudes and attitude change under the consumer behavior umbrella. If you're interested in learning more about related managerial topics, you can find my books, Rockstar Manager from Theory to Practice, or Build a Rockstar Business from Ideation to Inception in 120 Minutes if you want to start a new business. You can find them both and others online. You can also read Cengage's Consumer Behavior 9th edition. Thank you for your time. Be your best you and be a rockstar manager.